Hello, plant community. Thanks for tuning into Full of Foliage. Pam's here creating a safe space, showing lots of grace, sharing a lot of plant care, plant hauls, planty crafts, and the occasional shopping trips. Join me so that we can become planty friends, have fun, and possibly learn and grow. Hey guys, we are getting close to the wire here. We're getting closer and closer to the fall season, and with that, it's time for me to actually bring my plants from outside inside my home. Last year, I believe I shared a video with you guys of some of the things that I do before bringing in my plants. In this video today, you guys, I'm going to actually just share with you my overall experiences from doing it in the past 3 years, the benefits that I've seen, some of the cons, if you will, as far as growing plants outside. And I decided to do this video because of you guys. Some of you have commented with wanting to actually try to grow some plants outside, but you was a little apprehensive to do so. Some of you made a mention of because you don't like bugs and things like that. And so I understand all your concerns. So this video is more or less just giving you my information, and then you can kind of like pinpoint and see if it's something that you wouldn't mind wanting to try. And if any of you guys also out there also grow your plants outside and bring them inside, if you can comment below and help everybody out in this beautiful plant community, it'd be much appreciated. Now, before we get into the video, if this also seems like something that you like and you feel like someone could also benefit from this that may not watch this channel, don't forget to share, like, push those thumbs up, and thank you so much in advance. So let's just get right into it. So I'm just going to talk about the pros. Let's get the good stuff out of the way first. One of the benefits of me putting my plants outside is for getting new blooms. Y'all know I've created a Hoya wall, and in this season, or usually every year, I may get a surprise bloom here and there. And two of the surprise blooms that I've had this year that I can think of from the top of my head is actually one, my Hoya mirabilis, which bloomed this beautiful fuzzy like blooms. Very whimsical looking, something unique that I've never seen, never had the opportunity to. And then the second is actually with my monkey tail cactus, which I believe I recently shared with you guys. But I want to show y'all. Now that bloom thus far has fallen off, but it's another one that's actually trying to come in. And if you take a look at that very pink, kind of remind me of a like a strawberry. And that's just the beginning part of the bloom, and it'll eventually come out into a flower. So I think that's very unique, considering with this plant, she hasn't grown a bit because I chopped the one tail trying to grow her, but I know she was mainly focusing on growing the roots, but she still surprised me with the beautiful bloom nonetheless, and I believe that came from me having her outside. Another reason why I want to put plants outside is because you want to increase growth in the plant, whether it's like leaf shape, sizes. You also want to bring out color in your plants. Examples of the color part would be with my philodendron painted lady, as well as my Paraiso Verde. Now, I'm not going to show you guys those two plants because I believe they will be either in the video that I plan on showing you guys if it hasn't been uploaded already, depending on the order in which I'm doing it. But I will be sharing with you guys my philodendron collection, so you'll get a chance to see the growth there. But I do want to show you one of the Hoyas that I feel that has really increased in growth for me in this growing season, and I attribute that also to putting it outside, and that's my variegated incrustada Hoya incrustada, the variegated albo. And she has the beautiful white on the outside. But what I have noticed, because she's been kind of a slow grower, I've had this plant literally probably for 3 years at this point, and she like was growing some in the first year, did not do much growth in the second year, but this year she really pushed out growth. Now, granted, it can also be because of the time I've had this plant, but she wasn't really a baby when I brought her, so I don't know what stage of the plant that she was, if she was in a juvenile state and now she's just getting into her own as far as maturity, and that could be speaking to the size of the leaf. But I feel that putting her outside really played a huge factor in that, and I just wanted to show you, like, this is an example of the leaf size. As you can see, it's nice and shiny, which is also another indicator that this is a new leaf. As you can see, I'm trying to hold her in my hand. She literally is in the palm of my hand. This is another leaf right here as well, but she's also is starting to form around this trellis, which was not the case when I initially put this trellis in this plant, which I did do this growing season. So she is definitely turning into a very beautiful specimen, and that's what I like to see. So that's another rewarding benefit that I get from putting my plants outside. Another pro, you guys, is actually plants that may be taking a dive or plants that I have struggled with. Now let's just be honest in this particular scenario here. Will all your plants survive? The ones that's failing, if you put them outside, will they survive? No, because I've actually had plants that I've put outside that was at their breaking point, and they just couldn't give anymore, and they just gave up and they died. And that's fine, and that's part of the plant journey, right? That's part of the experience. We can't save every plant, and that's just the reality of the situation. But then there are plants that are, hey, you put them outside, and outside is what they needed. Outside is what they wanted. Outside jump starts them. And an example that comes to my mind, again, I'm not going to show y'all here, and y'all have already seen this plant as well because I've talked about this philodendron to death, and that's my Philodendron Plough-manii, which you will be seeing in my philodendron collection shortly. Or maybe you've already seen it. Again, I'm not sure the order of the video. But that is a prime example of putting a plant outside that was doing bad, and the outside just jump started her and gave her more and more motivation to want to grow. Another example that I'm about to share with you guys. Now, I know you guys are not the majority of you, I'll put it like that, are not a Croton fan, but I have to keep showcasing this plant because she is one of the oldest plants in my collection, and this is my Petra Croton. Now, I've been growing her in my house, you guys, for the past 5 years. I brought her in 2020 from a big box store. I understand you guys are not a big fan of this particular plant. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion, your own aesthetics, and I understand that. So I respect that. I hope you guys respect the reason why I'm talking about her, because this plant does bring me joy. She's very different, and she gives me beautiful tropical colors. But I also talk about this plant as far as bringing them back, because if you have been with me, my OG people who have been watching all of my videos, you will see where I've had some ups and downs with this plant. When I initially brought this plant, she had a total of maybe 3 actual stems, and we hit a bump in the road about a year or so ago, where I had to make a decision and actually cut 2 of the branches, 2 of the stems that was not doing well, and it got down just to this one stem that you see right here, you guys. And she had maybe like 3 leaves on the plant, and I did not know what to do. I thought maybe this plant just finally met its demise, because a lot of people say, hey, you cannot grow crotons inside your house. And so I said, okay, I've done the best that I could for the long haul. She provided me with some form of joy, and maybe I'm not able to grow her indoors. So I believe last growing season, I put her outside, and I was spraying her branches almost every other day, and just to promote growth. And I slowly started seeing growth coming out of this branch. And because I cut the other branches off, of course, interesting enough, it gave me these 2 branches right here from this one branch that I had left. And so I honestly feel like by me putting her outside and giving her the sun that she needs, she has thus survived, and she has rewarded me with even fuller growth than she was initially when I first brought her. So that is definitely a pro. So I recommend you guys, if you're putting plants outside or if you're thinking about it, if you have that struggling plant, before you actually say, you know what, I'm going to chuck this sucker in the trash. Don't act like y'all don't do that. Don't act like y'all don't do that. But before you put it in the trash, give it one last chance to prove itself to you, to see if it's worthy. And usually, for the most part, once that has activated them and I bring them back into my collection, the only real challenge is just trying to maintain them. So, of course, each year I make sure she is up. I make sure she is actually up in the glass, really, to maintain the color. Now, some of the color will die down over the non-growing season. I'm perfectly fine with that. But each year she probably will be one of those ones that I continuously put outside. Again, I know you guys aren't a big fan of Crotons, but this is a very, one of my oldest plants, one of them. Now, I've had some that's a little bit older than 5 years, but because of that and the ups and downs we've had and the fact that she's resilient and the way she's come back, she kind of really hold a special place in my heart. So I really, really admire this plant. Now, it's pretty much all the pros. Now, let's talk briefly about the cons. Now, you guys, some of you guys had made a mention actually on about the pest. We'll talk briefly about that. I'm just thinking about the cons right now, and I think I wrote them down because I wanted to make sure. Actually, there's only 2 cons from my experience. One, let me just talk about this. One is time, energy, and effort. You know, you would think that you put your plants outside and Mother Nature will do its work. Now, that's like, that's hindsight, or I think that's perspective a little bit. You can't really just put them outside and you think Mother Nature's going to take care of it, because you got to keep in mind, when you put them outside, they're still in containers, right? They're not being put in the ground. And so you can't really like leave them alone. I feel like when I have them outside, I'm working a little bit more diligently to make sure that these plants are okay. The ones on my front porch, as well as the one that I have on my deck. And the reason why is because they're getting more intense sun. You have to maintain watering a little bit more. In my area in particularly, you guys, I've been showing you guys how we've been getting like monsoon type rains where my cash poles will be filled with water. And so you have to kind of be mindful of making sure that they're not sitting in water. And also, you know, keep the rainwater, which is another benefit for me to water my plants at that time. But you got to make sure that they're not sitting in water. Constantly, you do check for pests. I also monitor them to see which plants can really take that direct sun versus which plants cannot. And so it kind of helps me pinpoint the successes of the plant. So, but that takes time and energy and effort. And I feel like I do that more, pay more attention to the plants that's growing outside than I do actually indoors during that time, because indoors is a little bit more controlled, if you will. Outside is something that's beyond your control, and so you got to maintain certain consistency. And if you don't, then plants can meet their demise. Now, I do actually have an example of that where she's did not meet her demise, but I'm glad that the situation happened for what it was. And it was actually my philodendron Atabapoense. I'm actually starting her over, you guys, and I'm about to tell y'all why as we discuss the next con, which would be pest. Honestly, you guys, as far as pests, I really haven't experienced too much pests or too many pests. And I think it's because outside of me watering the plants, I spray them down as well outside to maintain, especially with crotons and things like that. And even though you do all your pre-pest management treatments out there, every once in a while you do get subtle things. So not this particular croton, but my other croton is, I don't know, is it Mamey or I don't know which variety it was. I think I was told that it was sold to me as a Mamey, and one of you guys said that it may not be. But that one has been giving me problems with mealybug. She is currently still outside. And what I have been doing, because each year when I do this, I learn something to apply for the next growing season, if that makes sense. So what I've gathered too is my homemade mixtures of pre-pest management. Honestly, I feel like it's not aggressive enough, it's not strong enough to hold pests or diseases at bay. So because of that, when I'm outside, I know a lot of people don't like going the chemical route, but I have to do what works best for me because I have a lot of plants growing inside my home, and I don't want to cause some form of global infestation in my house because I did not do my due diligence with the ones that I'm growing outside. So I do use Systemix insect control. Last year I was able to get the granules, but honestly for some reason, and I don't know why, the granules I'm not able to find anywhere locally, and I'm not able to get it off of Amazon because for some reason this is not one of the states where it can be shipped here for some reason. I was like, bummer. But then I had went to I believe Ace, and I came across this. This is a systemic insect control, but this is liquid formula where you kind of like dilute it, follow the directions on here. I feel like that works, but I have to tell you guys, that stuff stinks to high heavens. It stinks. I don't know if it's the smell that's keeping the pests at bay or what, but guys, this thing is strong. I was like, woo, child. It stinks. So I basically follow directions on there and I put it in my spray bottle, and I've been spraying my plants outside. And so I kind of do 2 treatments before I actually bring them in. Some of my plants that I had, like some of the Hoyas that I've actually had on my Hoya wall, they're already in my sunroom now because they've done the second treatment, and I always check to make sure I didn't see any pests, and then I also didn't have any pest issues. Another thing that I can say as far as like growing my Hoya wall, and actually my philodendrons on the ground in this corner, is I can say that the spiders kind of like provided a barrier of protection as well. Now, of course, if you are a person who is fearful of spiders and things like that, then putting plants outside may not be ideal for you. You're going to come across some form of a bug or something. There's just no way around it. So I find that this is very beneficial. I have to use some form of chemical treatment in order to make sure and give me a peace of mind when bringing my plants back indoors. Now, but even though I really haven't had any issues with, I would say issues with pests, so to speak, outside of the mealybug and me doing the Systemix as a pre-pest management for transitioning my plants inside, one of the things that I have experienced has been ants. They are the bane of my existence. Every once in a while, not all my plants, I'll have maybe a plant pot here or a plant here that for some reason ants has infested the plant, got into the soil, and it's annoying, you guys. Because I have to then remove all the soil from the plant, spray the roots down, repot it, and it's just a whole thing, right? And so this particular time, I've only had 2 of my plants actually do that. One was my Hoya fungi, and usually, guys, once I actually come across stuff like that, after I go through all of that process of removing soil, cleaning the roots, giving her fresh soil, repotting her in a cleaner pot, or I even sanitize the pot. After, if I experience that, she's coming back inside the house, because at that point I can't risk her, because if ants got into her the first time, then ants is going to get into her the second time. But I'm going to talk briefly about that. But before I get to the ants and pots and things like that, actually this plant having the ant infestation is probably what helped me. So remember how I was telling you guys about me having torrential rains and downpours? I thought I was staying on top of making sure plants was not sitting in water. And unfortunately, she was one, I think, that was sitting in water for a few days before I even realized that she was in water. I, just poured the water out as I always do and kind of like let her sit and dry out a bit. But one day I was actually just monitoring the plant, and I don't know what made me lift her pot out of the cash pole, and she was infested with ants. And so I said, oh no. But oh no was actually a saving grace in regards to this, because when I was going through taking her out of that soil, I noticed that her roots had rotted out. They were dark and they were mushy, and I was like, and it jogged my memory to that time when she was sitting in water for that long period of time. So that's the con where I'm saying you got to put time and effort into ensuring that your plants are not, sitting in water from storms and rains and things like that. So in hindsight, so I'm starting her over, which kind of is my benefit, you guys, because as you can see how she is, I lost a lot of the lower leaves anyway. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. So I kind of cut all of the rotten root away, and I cut the stem all the way up to where I think it was okay to actually try to start growing her again. And I'm hoping that she will root. I'm confident that she will root, and once she does, I'll put her in some form of an area, chunkier soil, and hopefully she will grow. And I'm wondering, because I was really at odds with this plant, as far as was wondering why she wasn't growing, and that could have very well been the reason. So if she never had the ant infestation, or if I never even noticed that she had the ant infestation, then I would have never even got down to the roots, and she would have probably more than likely died in here, and then I would have thought it was my own doing of something. So that was like a little bit of blessing in disguise. Now in regards to the ants, one thing that I picked up on, and I said I'm going to do next growing season, you guys, is I know ants do not like cinnamon. So one of the things that I'm going to do is sprinkle cinnamon on the top of the soil, and I'm also going to sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon inside my cash pole. I also have to be mindful of the type of planters that I put outside, because it's been my experience that ants tend to get into like my terracottas. Now I only notice the terracottas if I don't have a base at the bottom that's heavy enough to secure that drainage hole, such as with I have my ficus, my original ficus that's grown on my front porch during the growing season, and she's in a terracotta pot, but I have a what do you call it, one of those clear drip trays that's really close. So as long as I've noticed that with my terracotta pots, as long as I secure that drainage hole, I kind of stop ants from going in there. But there are certain pots that I know not to put outside, and I've learned this the hard way from previous years of trying to put my plants outside. And I came across an example that I wanted to share with you guys. These pots are very beautiful, and these are the pots that has like the bottom already attached, and it has the drainage hole inside. These styles of planters, in my personal opinion, is not the way to go with having your plants outside. Now, unless you live in an environment where you can keep your plants out there, then that will be fine. But if you are having to transition your plants from outside inside, this is not the planter you want to use, because for some reason the ants will find their way by going in through the lip and coming up through here has been my experience. So I make sure that none of my plants are in here, in this type of planter. I also try to make sure I use some clear plastic pots. I'm also constantly trying to monitor my cash pole pots as well. So the main, like I said, my main pest has actually been ants. And like I said, one or two plants in total. I haven't really had any issues with spider mites. Like I said, I've been having a battle with the mealybugs for my other croton. But outside of that, because I've been spraying and been very vigilant about caring for the plants, I really haven't had any issues. But one of my major takeaway, you guys, is you got to use some form of systemics. You got to hit them hard, I think, to prepare them for, because that's the thing that I don't want to happen. I just have way too many plants, and I can't take that chance of having them all meet their demise because I just failed to do a treatment or something like that, if that makes sense. But outside of that, you guys, I really enjoy growing my plants outside. I really wish I lived in an environment where I can keep them outside, because I love the fact of how you can make a mess outside, right? And you don't have to worry about cleaning. So plant care is a little bit different from inside the home versus outside the home. You know, I do all my changes on the table out there, and all I have to do is just shake the dirt out in the yard and I'm good. Whereas opposed to here, you got to make sure you don't make a mess on the floor. You got to clean, you got to vacuum, yada, yada, yada. So I think caring for my plants is a little bit more easier, a little bit even more enjoyable, and faster, I would say, as opposed to doing it inside. So yeah, so that pretty much is it. You guys, if you grow your plants outside, and if you had any experiences, good as well as bad, please share with this plant community so that we can all have all facts, and then we can kind of like draw from everybody's perspective and see if we're willing to try to do the same thing in our own indoor and outdoor jungle. So yeah, if you love foliage as much as I do, and you love listening to planty things, definitely do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Keep pushing those thumbs up, like and share. Thank you so much for all that take time out of their day just to do that thumbs up. It's been helping out my channel. I appreciate it. Enjoy your day wherever you are in the world, and until next time, guys, much love. Bye.